Hi, thanks for joining me for another video. So I've been trying to figure out how exactly to talk about the topic of Kundalini in a way that isn't prepackaged or like using these spiritual jargon words that make it seem, out of touch with the reality of what it is, and also convey the importance still. So like sometimes we have this jargony language and it like helps to tune our minds into this is something different that we should pay attention to. But with this in particular, it's like such a not something I knew existed when I was little. I did not know that this was something that existed when I was little. I didn't grow up in a world or environment or community that was talking about this. It's completely foreign. Sometimes it's like still kind of almost hard to wrap my mind around how little I understood of these certain aspects of spirituality. So I just happen to really like God, and I happen to really like the idea of psychic powers. And when I was little, I just really practiced and tried. I would walk around my house and I would try to find ghosts, and I would look for little weird energy spots and see if there was a difference. And I really liked the movie Firestarter with Drew Barrymore because I was, pretty young, so it was like, oh, so you can be a little kid and have psychic powers. So I was all for it. But other than that, I didn't know that there was actually certain practices or certain condition that you could actually alter your neurochemistry in such a way that these things become possible, because our brains obviously have the capacity for things that we still don't quite understand. We get pretty limited perspective on what the brain is and what it's capable of, what the mind is capable of. Everybody and their grandma has a different idea of what spirit is and what spirituality is. I don't even think scientists and physicists even have come to any sort of conclusions about something like quantum mechanics and what's actually happening there, even though it's clear that consciousness is having an impact. So it's those sorts of things where we're really behind in a lot of ways for some of this information. And so I want to talk about it, but I want to talk about it without trying to come off as if I knew this stuff before it happened. It happened, and then later on I figured out, oh, that's what that was? Well, what the hell do I do now? But I also want you to understand why it's worth the effort to attempt to experience it. And I would say that it's ridiculous, realistically, that more people aren't tuning in to what is happening and what you have access to. Because I think that a world that could be created from this kind of like fountain of abundant energy and connection would feel better. A lot of people would feel better. I physically, almost all the time, feel so much better. It is hard to even believe that I survived in the body I was living in before. And, I've told you the story of falling off the cliff. I fell off a cliff. I broke my back. I've had a bunch of back surgeries. I have all sorts of, stuff that happened, a little bit of nerve damage in my back. So there's always been a portion of pain. And so if you can try to imagine how it feels to be encased with like a bliss state and like almost wearing like a warm blanket that there's no edge to, so there's no edges to it. So pain is still there, but it is looked at and felt in a different capacity. It's really hard to describe. And so I guess just to give you a little idea, just more bearing for if you've had a Kundalini awakening, or you're trying to figure out what happened to me, because I know it's just not really well understood. We have Google, we have YouTube, we get to hear other people's stories, and we can kind of compare, but actually getting someone's ear that really knows what they're talking about, we don't really have access to that. We have access to information coming into us, and then we have to discern that information. Does it apply to my situation or not? But not many of us get to sit in the presence of someone who knows full well and can just tap in, and they can tell you or turn it on if it's not. Just to be clear on that. So I'm just going to talk about my own, what it feels like for me, what has been happening in the last 10 years or so, because it's been about a 10-year process, the physical aspects of things. First, I went through a couple very bizarre and big forms of breakthrough awakenings, where it was more like, the physical world is not what I think it is, material world is not the whole story. Lots of information from other beings, insights, protection, guidance, avoiding near-death experiences over and over and over again. It's been a weird life anyway, so there was a lot of preparation before this happened, because I had to constantly turn back. I had to turn back to God. So I grew up in very rough circumstances, surrounded by very rough characters, and it would have been very, very easy for me to never look at God. It was almost weird how much I liked God, considering what the alternative would have been so much easier where I was at and the people that I was around. I kept on turning back to God. And it was this is a really, I think, a useful metaphor for understanding it, at least for me and from my perspective. It was like, if you can imagine the spirit, the divine being, kind of like a parental figure, and they give you the keys to their car. At first they give you the keys to their cheap car, and you get to drive that and see how you do with that. And if you do well with it, then they let you drive the fancy car. And if you do well with that, then they give you keys to the secret car that you didn't know that they had parked behind the barn. And then after a while, after you've shown that you can drive this unbelievably amazing car, sometimes apparently flies, it's just so incredible, and can do magic tricks and all sorts of stuff, then they say, that's yours. It always was yours. We just wanted to make sure that you could drive it without wrecking it, because that would be the nice thing to do, is make sure that someone knows how to take care of their very beautiful, awesome flying car before you just turn them loose with it. So that's, I guess, the best analogy that I can think of, is you slowly gain the use of something that is outside of the realm of your ability to really imagine is true before you experience it. So I can tell you that there's a blanket of energy that I can feel that will dissolve knots. If I get knots of emotion, knots of pain, knots of thought swirling, it will dissolve it like heat melts butter. You can use it to read other people, because you're kind of sitting in this just bliss state. Bliss is the best word. I don't know a better word. It's a calm niceness. And so you can tell when there are any sorts of, what do they say on Star Wars, disturbance in the Force. You can tell, because it is so sublime, that at any time that breaks, any waves in it are super easy to tell. So you get extraordinary psychic abilities if you learn if you do the work to calm your own karmas, your own um, tendencies and patterns, if you are able to bring up and let go of your beliefs that are stopping you in some kind of way, making you do stuff that's uncomfortable and you don't like, that's causing disturbances in your own force. And once you have felt that kind of complete, like symphony of peaceful energy, and all of the intelligence that it connects into, right? So there's limitless intelligence that it connects into, and it's like a personable. It's not all just like this abstract ideas. They're literal beings. You can feel their love coming at you. You can ask them questions and they will respond. um, Both awakened people living on earth right now, and other stuff that I sometimes I try to ask and figure out what they are, but for the most part it's unnecessary because there's so much love infused with it and a helpful nature, that it isn't necessary. Like, hey, tell me your name and rank and where do you come from. It's just an experience of communion in that space, and all infused with a holiness, because that the full divinity is present, and so there isn't like no, you don't, you're not hiding, you're not putting a mask on, you're naked in that place. It's like being back in the garden. um, and profound for those reasons. And so you lose interest really quickly in some of the games that we play when we are attempting to make our physical bodies or our mind, or quieting the emotional storms that we can get in. You lose interest in that stuff really quickly, and you know very well that it isn't going to lead you to this feeling, and you no longer want anything to disturb it. That's what you want, to grow it. You want it to be bigger. It feels incredible in ways that really defy adequate description. Many times that I broke my back and then had surgery, so I was on all sorts of medications, all of the pain meds, and that they do not touch this because it's vitality. There's a vitality. So it's all of the pain-free type of ecstatic qualities without losing any of the juice, the vitality of life. And so it has it's like being amped without being jittery, and feeling peaceful without being like depressed. It's really hard to describe. Everything working right, so it takes time to get to that level though. So in the beginning it wakes up and it starts doing its work, and part of the work that it's doing is clearing out all of the pain, all of the like the neuro, what's the word, the patterning that you'll have, hardwired basically from doing the same thing in the same way so many times. It will develop these neurological patterns in you, and that all has to be rewired so that you can experience bliss and be used to it as you are still functioning in the regular material world along with everybody else. So like, as an example, I was running at the park and they were doing the mowing and all trimming and taking care of all of the grass and the trees and all of this stuff. And I don't know what this guy, he had this big machine on the back of his mower, and it was kicking out, the dust and the grass clippings. And he was on the trail, a paved trail, and just getting this tiny little bit on either side of the grass. And he wouldn't stop so I could get around. The path goes up, it's up this hill, and then you go around a loop, and then you have to come back down the same path. There's no other way to get out from there. you're stuck up there once you're up there, one way down. And he was blocking the path. And there was this little 8 inches that you to go around on the right side of it. Otherwise, it was like a 1.5 foot of grass, on the other. If you were off the path, so you were going pretty deep into the prairie. And, so if he had stopped his machine, there was another older gentleman up there too, so that the two of us could come down, then we wouldn't have gotten blasted with dust and grass. We did get blasted with dust and grass. And so as I was running away, I was like, and I flipped him off. I don't know if he saw me. I'm hoping he didn't, but I could not flip him off. And did that stop me from feeling the bliss? Bliss is still there. You can get mad. You can do an obnoxious thing, like flip someone off for doing their job, because it wasn't fun to go through a dust cloud of grass and dirt after you've been sweating, so it's like you're gonna just stop. And but I'm not going to young me, before having experienced a state of bliss, would not laugh about it. I probably would have internalized it in some capacity and then kept it with me. I might even hold ill will towards him, later down the road. Now I think it's funny, like, dude, he was literally just doing his job, and it is kind of ridiculous that I flipped him off for that. That's why I hope he didn't see it. But also, to be clear, it doesn't turn you into, like an enlightened teacher of the ilk of, Thich Nhat Hanh, who could, like emit a peace, in all situations. You work up to that level where you can get blasted with grass and dirt and not flip them off. Now the funny thing is that my little warning system did tell me, don't go up there. I'm like, well, I have to go up there because I have to do, I have a little set routine I like to do. I like to do the whole thing. So did get the warning, didn't listen, had that experience. So it doesn't instantly turn you into this beautiful equivalent to a monk that has been studying for decades. And you have to be realistic on what it is that you're cultivating within you, so that as you are, hearing other people's stories about it, and as you are training your own self in to become the being that you want to be and utilize this energy for the highest good that you perceive it to be brought forth for, there's going to be some of those hang-ups along the way. There's going to be days, where you swear at the other cars, and then you have to remember, oh yeah, I have this bliss state. I'm going to send some energy back to those people that I just said that to, and make sure they're okay. So you correct yourself. This energy is powerful. You don't just shoot negativity in different places without correcting it and adding, and cultivating that goodness within you, attached to this beautiful bounty, the hidden car that you got the keys to, that can do all sorts of stuff. You don't even know where all the buttons are. You just started driving the thing. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling now, and so I'm going to stop. But energetically, what most people describe is that it starts, internally, and like still to this day for me, when I wake up in the morning, it is like my body comes alive. The energy moves up to my brain. Starts at the feet, moves up to my brain. If I ever get like a cold, or if I get some kind of illness or something like that, like it feels like it's starting or something, it'll like, there'll be like massive heat there until it dissolves. Usually dissolves very quickly. I'm able to work out now. I like couldn't when I first left Washington. I was in such bad shape. But now it's really quick. So my recovery time from walks or running or anything that I do physically is pretty incredible for my age and how bad off I was like 10 years ago. My health wasn't so awesome. So it like really can recalibrate, reset your system, and support you in really amazing ways. And then all of the access that you get from it. So it's worth investigating if you think that you've had a Kundalini awakening, to keep working at it. Some of the early years of it, the early months, however long it's been for you, can be intense, because all of the traumas and things that you've done wrong to others get brought up for you to deal with. And the quicker that you deal with them, the less time you are taking up with them. So it's better to just, in my opinion, get in and get it done. Don't avoid it. What is your reward here? There is no earthly reward that's worth and avoiding stuff that you can fix. Well, I'm going to keep on paying, like I got to pay my mortgage, so I can't stop and think about the person I hurt 10 years ago. You have time to stop and think about that if your Kundalini has awakened. And you can still do all your other stuff too. You stop and think about it, and you send a mental apology. If someone has hurt you, rather than holding on to it, you take them in your space, and you have a compassionate moment with yourself, understanding we all make these kinds of mistakes. Like, there's a whole bunch of work to it and tricks to it. It's not a one size fits all. So you can get a lot of information from other people, but it is really doing that internal work of looking at all the stuff that's been taking up all of your mental space and clearing it out, so you have that silent, clear, calm, energy that's full of vitality, that's surrounding you, that's informing you, that allows you to be on these fields of open, endless vistas with intelligent beings that are full of this love and compassion for us and each other. We are there, we're there. So, all right, take care. Feel free to ask any questions and comments, or leave your own experience. I think it does really help each other when we know like what happened, what it's like, what's going on, what is the experience, so that we can take it in, take the information in, and compare and contrast with what we're doing and what we need, and then ask. All right, take care till next time. Bye.